And we can always stop and I can eat.
Perfect. We start with your full name, please.
Richard David Kellis.
Can you spell that for me?
Kellis.
And your first and middle name as well, please.
Spell Richard,
Yes.
Richard, and then David, David.
You never know. Some people spell it differently. Can you tell me when and where you were born?
I was born in Los Angeles, Boyle Heights, February the 12th, 1925.
So how old are you currently?
92. I'll be 93 in February.
And which branch of the military did you serve in?
U.S. Navy.
And what years did you serve?
1943 to I don't remember. It's on, when was it? When was I discharged? No, it's on the big one. May the 13th.
Oh, right here. May 13th, 1946.
46.
And when did I go in?
You in February of 43, I think.
That's right.
And what was your rank, your full rank upon discharge?
Yeoman, second class.
In your time during the service, which ships did you serve on?
First one was the USS Doherty, a destroyer Estor, DE-14. Then I went on the USS Pasadena, CL-65, which was a light cruiser, pretty big ship. And the last one was the USS Salisbury Sound, which was a seaplane tender. We brought seaplanes aboard and fixed them and put them back in the water again.
And which theater of operations did you serve in?
Asia,
And
South Pacific.
and were you guys involved in any significant battles, any specific conflicts?
Yes.
Which ones?
Well, give me that little one, that little ship.
This one?
Yeah. Well, we first went to Luzon and Mindanao in the Philippines and bombarded the Philippines so that MacArthur could come back with his corncob pipe. And then we bombarded Formosa. Formosa is now I can't remember the name of it. And then we went to French Indochina and bombarded there in Hong Kong, back to Formosa, then bombarded Okinawa, and then bombarded Tokyo. We tried to blow up all the gasoline tanks on Honshu. And then we bombarded Iwo Jima until we went back to the Tokyo area and then back to Okinawa. That'd give you an idea.
Did you guys receive any medals or commendations for any of the conflicts that you were involved in?
Well, I received American Theater with 4 stars in it, stars for battles, and then the Asiatic Pacific with 2 stars for battles.
Great. Now I'd like to rewind a bit, talk about your childhood, your family life growing up. Did you have any siblings?
Yes, I have 2 brothers.
And what are their names?
Lawrence, which we call Larry, and Leo.
And Are they older or younger?
Younger.
Both are younger.
Leo's 2.5 years younger than I am. Larry's 10 years younger than I am.
So they both missed the war, I'm assuming.
No, Larry was in the, yeah, they missed World War II.
Yeah.
My number two brother, who was 2.5 years younger, he was in World War II.
Where was he during the war?
He was in Treasure Island in near San Francisco. He was running the computers. In those days, the computers were the size of a building. And if something went wrong, you had to fix it. There was nobody to fix it.
There's no IT department?
No, nothing like that. Everything was, well, it was just the beginning of computers.
Were you guys close growing up, you and your two brothers?
Well, I was taken away right away, practically. We were close when we were
I mean,
younger.
when you were little.
Yeah, when we were younger, we played games and stuff like that, baseball together in the streets. In those days, you could play in the streets.
And tell me about your parents. What were their names?
My mother's name was Irene. Maiden name was Hecht, Hecht. And she died at 94. She worked at, well, first she went to USC to learn, what do you call it? How to inspect planes and whatnot for inspection. Then she went to work at North American in El Segundo, and her job was inspecting the planes. And if the rivets were bad or anything was wrong, she wouldn't let them go through. And she made them send them back and fix them. And the guys would say, "How come? I mean, this is not going to hurt anything." She says, "I've got 2 boys over there. Don't tell me how come." And they stopped. That was the end of the conversation. But she worked there through the war. And then she went to work for the Red Cross, and she discharged me. Wrote up my discharge papers and everything else and discharged me.
But that was a happy day for her.
Yeah, it was a happy day for her.
Probably you as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah. But what had happened in the meantime, she had divorced my father. He was sort of an alcoholic. And it was kind of bad because I was gone. And then my brothers needed somebody to talk to, and they didn't have me. And that was they both got mentally hurt because of the divorce. But those things happen. She went to work for California Bank when I got out of the service. And then she went to work for another savings and loan company, but I forgot which one. But she was a very smart woman.
And did your father work?
He, when I was born, he was driving a yellow cab. And then he was actually a bookie, which was taking bets and all that stuff, illegally, of course. And he had about 100 arrests, no convictions. So the last time he was arrested, the judge said, "I'm going to convict you. I don't care what your lawyer says if you come in here again." So that was the last time he did it. Anyway, then one time, he used to visit us all the time. And then one time, he didn't come for about a week or so, and I went over to his house and found out he was dying of pneumonia. So I took him to the hospital and packed his stuff up and brought him over to my house. And he lived with us for about 11 years. It was a tough road to hoe for my wife, because he was a tough guy to to handle. You want me to ramble? I'm rambling. So.
That's okay. Can you talk about growing up during the Depression?
Yeah, we didn't have any food. Sometimes we had oatmeal 3 times a day, and hot chocolate to drink or whatever. But anyway, my grandmother and grandfather on my mother's side would bring us over groceries all the time because my grandfather worked at the American Can Company, and he designed all their belt systems for putting tops on cans and filling them up. You know, the belt went around. And so anyway, I don't know what that is.
Sounds like a dog, maybe?
Huh?
A dog?
They got a St. Bernard, big one. So anyway, yeah, he worked at American Can Company, and finally he got a job for my mother there. She worked where they were canning chili, and she used to come home and her hands were peeling from the hot chili. Really. And her and I would have a cigarette together in the kitchen when she came home. And I was working the thrifty drugstore.
How old were you when you had your first job?
15. Well, I had to work because we didn't have any money. And so I got an ad in the paper, went downtown Los Angeles to the main 50 drugstore, and they had an opening for a dishwasher in Huntington Park. So I went to work in Huntington Park as a dishwasher. There were 2 of us washing dishes. The other guy was an old man. He was an alcoholic, and he drank all the time out of a paper bag.
On the job?
On the job, but I didn't drink. I didn't drink at all anyway. Too young. So I worked my way up to be a busboy. Then I worked my way up to be a waiter. And I worked my way up to be a soda jerk. Made all the soda drinks, malts, and et cetera, banana splits, everything. And so I was what is known as third man. And so I went to the cook, because we worked a split shift in those days. And on my time off, I went to the cook and I said, I'd like to learn how to cook. He says, okay. So he taught me how to cook, be a fry cook, make sandwiches and fry eggs and steaks and whatnot. So I worked on my own time, didn't get paid for it, learning how to cook. And now I was, 16 or 17. And all of a sudden the war started, December 7th. And everybody ran out in the streets to see what was going on. It was a very important time.
Let me ask you real quick. Do you remember how much money you were getting paid?
I was making 35 cents an hour. And then we had to go on strike. We had to join the union. And, the union came in and signed up everybody. So the union, I forgot, it was $2 a week or $4 a week they took. At 35 cents an hour, they took half my wages practically. And so anyway, if I was going to join the union, I went down to see what was going on. So I'm just a kid, 16 probably. And I went down to the union hall, and there was nobody there, except there was a meeting on the stage, And I was sitting there with an old guy, and he says, "Don't say a word, just watch." And I watched, and the guys were giving themselves salaries and vacations, and voting, all sorts of stuff. My money. So I went back to my boss, and I said, "I quit." He says, "No, what are you quitting for?" I said, "You make me join the union, and I'm not going to join that union." And I told him what I saw, and he says, "Okay, you're not in the union. You can still work." So he let me work. I didn't have to join the union.
Got to keep all your money?
I got to keep all my money, which I gave to my mother.
Did you keep any of it for yourself, or did it all go?
Oh, change, maybe quarter for candy or something. But no, I didn't keep much money.
And what are some of the things that you would do for fun growing up?
Well, sports. And those days we used to have empty lots on the streets, and we'd set up and build a fort in an empty lot. Pull the weeds out, dig a hole, climb in, and we would fight some other kids who would come over and shoot us with slingshots or whatever they had. It was just games. So we played that, and we played marbles and baseball. Baseball was about the only game we played. Oh yeah, we played broom hockey, where you used a broom on a bicycle, and you played hockey
With a ball?
with a ball. It was called broom hockey. And we played in the streets in front of our house. And then one day, a car came up behind us, and the guy honked his horn. We didn't see him. And a friend of mine died of a heart attack on the street. Fell down dead.
Really?
Scared him half to death, I guess. And scared him to death. And so then we were very careful about playing in the streets anymore.
How old was he?
My age, he was about 12, 10 or 12. I almost forgot about that.
How did that make you feel when that happened?
Scared to death. Yeah, and I've never seen anybody die before. I was too young. In school, I remember a kid had an epileptic fit. Fell on the floor and frothing at the mouth and all that. That scared the devil out of me. I'd never seen anything like that before either. And so, but those things stuck in my mind.
Now, did you graduate from high school?
Yes. I graduated and joined the Navy the same day.
So let's rewind. We'll rewind a little bit, and we'll talk about when the attack on Pearl Harbor occurred. You remember where you were that day?
Yeah, I was working at your drugstore when they attacked Pearl Harbor, and which was the most excitement I've ever seen. Everybody was screaming. People were running around the streets. People left their work. It just seemed to be something that I was too young to really understand what was going on. But we used to listen to the radio, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he'd give a family talk or whatever it was every night.
Fireside chat?
Fireside chat, that's what it was called. And then we would listen to that, my mother and I and my brothers, and find out what was going on in the world.
Do you remember listening to his address to the nation the following day?
Oh, yes. Everything.
And do you remember the feelings that you had around that time?
Oh, yeah, we were gung-ho. I went down to join up at 12, and they sent me home and said, come back in a few more years and you can... It wasn't 12, I was 16. 41. Yeah, I was 16. And I went down to join up, and they wouldn't take me. I said, I could bring a letter from my mother, and we're not going to take you anyway. I looked about 10. I was very young looking. And so as soon as I graduated high school, I went down and joined. I was 17 then.
Now, did any of your school buddies, did they join up? Did they sign up for the war?
Yeah, all of us went in. Everybody went in. That I know of. In fact, a whole bunch of us, about 6 or 7 of us, all joined up, all graduated, and all went down to Central Avenue, which was all black neighborhood, and we went into a bar. We were 16, 17, and we ordered a drink, and they gave us a drink. We told them we just joined the service. They were so nice. We were the only white people there, 6 of us. The rest of them were all black, which was okay. We didn't even think about it, you know. I was never prejudiced, so didn't even worry about it.
Now, was the legal drinking age a bit lower back then?
No, 21.
It was 21.
Yeah, they really put themselves out on a limb, but that didn't make any difference.
They could have gotten in pretty big trouble had they.
Terrible trouble, but you know what? Who was going to do anything? We were joining the service. We were going out to fight the war, and the war had just been going on for just a year. And so, no one was going to bother him. And we didn't get drunk. Well, we just had one drink.
Now, do you remember who your closest friend was in high school? Did you have a best friend or a few best friends?
Yeah, Skaggs was his name. He was a lot older than I was. He'd failed a couple of times, so he was about 21, still in high school. But we were fairly good friends. But I never really had close friends in school, in high school.
Do you have any girlfriends in high school?
No.
Now, your buddies that went to join up, did they join the Navy as well, or did they kind of pick their own path?
Everybody picked their own path. A lot of them joined the Navy. A lot of them, in other words, that picture of all the servicemen,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody was in high school with me on that picture.
And why did you choose the Navy?
I just did.
Mm-hmm.
I just did. I really didn't care to do hand-to-hand combat, and I didn't want to shoot somebody dead. So in the Navy, you don't know who you're shooting. So.
And did you have the support of your parents? Of
Oh,
your
yeah.
mother?
Oh, yeah. My mother wrote me every day for 4 years. I got a letter every day. One time we were at sea for 72 days without seeing land or anything. When I got our mail, I had 72 letters from my mother. Lined them all up, started reading them. But she wrote me every single day.
Now, where did you go for your basic training?
San Diego.
And can you talk about that experience a little bit?
Well, I didn't know too much about. Yeah, I went down there by train, and I really don't remember too much. It was very simple. We just went into training. We had to do a lot of hiking, a lot of marching, a lot of firing of guns, a lot of pre-war stuff, teaching us what to do in case, we got stuck on an island or something. But anyway, but I couldn't swim. So that whole group went out to sea, and I had to stay there till I could swim. And so I took swimming lessons. That didn't do any good. I was like a rock in the water. And so I went to take the test, and the guy who was giving me the test was talking to somebody else, wasn't really paying any attention. So I walked part of the way. Then when I saw he looked at me, then I, pretended like I was swimming. And so he passed me. And so we had to jump off like a 40-foot platform into the pool. With a life jacket on, and hang on to it, pretend like we're jumping off a ship. And you had to do it. Next, and it just kept jumping. You tried not to jump on somebody's head. And of course, they used a hook and pulled me out of the way so nobody would jump on me. That was interesting. Anyway, so I went to bed that night, and they woke me up and said, "Your name's on the roster. You're going on aboard the USS Doherty." I said, "Okay." And I packed up everything, and they put me on a small motor whaleboat and took me out to sea. Well, I didn't know what the Doherty was. Could be an aircraft carrier as far as I was concerned. And this was in San Diego Harbor, and there were battleships, and there were cruisers, and way out, there was this little destroyer escort, looked like about a foot long. So I went aboard that. And I got there, and they didn't have a bunk for me. And so they said, "You have to swing a hammock." I said, "Okay," so I swung my hammock. And then they woke me up at 5 in the morning and said, "You're in the kitchen." I didn't know I was in the kitchen. So they made me take my hammock down and all that. And I became sort of a busboy, because I was just an apprentice seaman. And I served meals. And then on payday, you passed a bowl around, and they would all toss in $1 or 50 cents or something because you served them, which was interesting.
I think your son had mentioned to me that are you partially colorblind or?
I'm colorblind.
Colorblind. So
Well, that was another thing.
Okay, can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, I failed my entrance exam into the Navy.
This is when you originally were going.
This was when I originally went in, because I was colorblind. So I went was downtown L.A.
Well, how did you feel when they turned you away?
Felt terrible. I had no idea I was colorblind. You never took did you ever take a color test when you were a kid? No, nobody even knew about it. So this was before they found out that colorblind people can see through camouflage, which was a good thing. But anyway, back to Siberia. I went to a barbershop to get a haircut. And I was sitting there waiting for my turn. Haircuts were 25 cents. And there on the coffee table thing was that colored book, the book with all the numbers in it, that I had to take the test and failed. So I took the thing, and a guy was sitting next to me. I said, "Do you see any numbers there?" He said, "Sure, there's a 7. As soon as he told me, I saw the 7. The next one, he said, "That's an 8 or a 6, whatever." And so I went through a whole book, and then he tested me on the whole thing. Then I went right back and joined the Navy, and they accepted me. And I passed the colorblind test. But I couldn't see the numbers at all. But I knew once somebody told me that there was a number there, then somehow the brain worked. So I passed.
And you were able to memorize
I memorized the book, sitting there in the barber shop. I've forgotten about that. So, and they never give you another test anyway.
So, were there any other memorable experiences during your training? Anything else that sticks out in your memory?
I really can't think of anything.
Do you have your instructors? Do you remember them at all?
No. Don't remember my instructors at all.
And did you make any close friends or?
Well, I had friends. We'd go into town and have a drink or something, but no close friends. I never. And then I told you they sent me out to sea, and by the way, when I was on the hammock, the ship took off and went to sea. The ship was going like this, but I was steady because I was in the hammock. It didn't bother me at all. I never got seasick in my life. So anyway, we were a quarter of a way to Hawaiian Islands when they woke me up and found out. So that was kind of fun to get to Hawaii.
And what was your job on the Doherty?
It was a seaman, which means cleaning up everything, shining up everything, making sure that everything was shipshape, so to speak.
Did you guys eventually arrived in Pearl Harbor?
Mm-hmm. That's when we saw all those ships half sunk. The whole Pearl Harbor was still the way it was after the Japs sank all our ships. And so later on, when I came back, they had cleaned it all up, took all the ships away or whatever.
Do you remember seeing the ships in the harbor there, and do you remember the thoughts that were going through your head at that time? Did it?
No, it was sort of exciting to see all that because you had read about it, and Roosevelt told everybody about it, so it was exciting to see it. Let's see. Oh yeah, you had to be back aboard ship at 5. All lights were out in Hawaii. It was pitch black. And if you were driving a car at night, your lights had to be painted half black and just a little sliver on top because they thought the Japs were coming back. But they never did.
And how long were you in the Hawaiian Islands for?
Oh, just for a day or two, and then we got orders to go to Alaska on the USS Doherty. That's that first ship I was on. So then we went to Anchorage, and then Sitka and all the islands, the Aleutian Islands. And what we did, we picked up Russian ships that came. We were a Lend-Lease program then, and we would the ships would pick up, I forgot what it was, tractors and all sorts of stuff that we loaned to Russia. And so we would convoy maybe a dozen ships. We'd just go around the circle, make sure there were no submarines around. And we would go to Vladivostok in Russia, above Japan, take the ships there, and pick up another group of ships and bring them back to the
Are
Aleutian.
these like cargo ships? Or?
Yeah, these were all cargo ships. We were lending. It was called a Lend-Lease program at that time. We were lending them stuff that they needed to farm. So that's what I did. We were, until I got transferred. That's when I got a transfer. I saw a transfer to Newport, Rhode Island, from Alaska to put the USS Pasadena into commission. What they do when they put a new ship in is they draw up people from all over the world, so that nobody gets, too many people from one area. It wouldn't be a good thing. So they draw people from all over. So that's why I had no friends, because they came from all over.
So how long when did that transfer occur? When did you leave the Doherty and
Well, I was transferred in January, I think it was. The Doherty I went to was in May or June. And so...
Did you request the transfer, you said, or they?
Yeah, I requested it.
And for any particular reason?
No, just why should I stay up there, and if I can get transferred to another ship and see what's going on. I wanted to go around the world,
Yeah.
I wanted to see different things, be on different types of ships. I was on 3 different ships. Not many guys did that. Fact is, the Pasadena was there at the signing in Pearl Harbor of the Japanese surrender, and I missed it because I was transferred to another ship. But I figured I'd never do this again, so I wanted to do different things. I always was like that.
So there was a few months in between you leaving the Doherty and getting on the Pasadena?
No, it was about 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, because let's see. Yeah, the Pasadena wasn't even built yet. It was just beginning. It was being built in Boston, naval shipyards. And that was, I told you I came back from the guys from Guadalcanal. The ship was full of, the train was full of guys from Guadalcanal who had been fighting like crazy. And they were all Marines, and I was the only sailor in the cars we were in. So they sort of took care of me. And they had suitcases full of booze, just full. So we just drank. And then they said, let's see if we can find you a girlfriend. So they went down the train, and they picked up a girl and brought her back to me. 19-year-old. It's a very pretty girl. And she sat with me, and we necked on the train in front of all these Marines. Didn't bother me any. And then she got off in Chicago, and so they bought me a ticket from Chicago to Rhode Island and let me get off with her. And we spent a couple of days together in a hotel room, and it was terrific. And then I had to get back on and kissed her goodbye. And I went on to Rhode Island.
Well, that was nice of them.
It was nice of them. They're all very nice. Well, I looked like I was 12. Really, I was the young. You never saw somebody look so young in all your life. And I looked very young. And they just sort of took care of me.
So where did the train originate? Where did you get on the train originally? On the West Coast?
I got on the train, and I got on a plane from Alaska to Seattle. In Seattle, I got on a train to Los Angeles because they let me have a week to go home to visit my mother. And then so I went home. And then stayed with my family for a week. And then I got on a train in Los Angeles and went straight through to Chicago, changed in Chicago to New York to Rhode Island.
And how was it seeing your family again?
But that was fun. I loved it. I'm my own boy. Seeing my family was very important because I knew I probably wouldn't see him again forever, it seemed like, because I was going to board the USS Pasadena, but I didn't know where she was going. I had no idea. And when I got to Rhode Island, I had to swing on a rope across a stream and crawl on my belly with machine gun bullets above my head. I mean, all this stuff, I thought, this is ridiculous. So that's when I found out that there was a guy, they wanted somebody in the office. So that's when I said, I'm going to strike as a yeoman. So they said, can you type? And I said, yes, but I couldn't. And so I took the keys on a typewriter. Well, I took a quarter and I made circles and I put the whole thing, typewriter, on the wall in front of me and sat there and typed all day long till I learned how to type.
So you taught yourself?
Taught myself. And so I typed and then I was a yeoman. No more machine guns shooting at me.
Now let me ask you, that week that you got to spend with your family, remember that day that you had to leave them again, when you had to leave your mother again?
Mm-hmm.
Did she say anything to you? Was there any words exchanged?
Nothing that I can. You asked me to remember something that happened 80 some odd years ago, and nothing that stuck. No, it was, hugs and kisses and goodbyes to my brothers, 2 brothers.
Now, can you explain to me again what a yeoman is and does?
Yeah, a yeoman takes care, at least my job was to take care of all the records of all the enlisted men. In other words, make sure that everything is put in the records that it's going on. If we let's say we bombarded Okinawa, we put that in the records like this. See, we made sure that they had, everything was in their records. And then if any of them got transferred either on board or from on board to another ship, we had to make up all the papers and everything else.
And were you were you one of many yeomen for that ship, or was it your sole responsibility?
Well, no. There was about 4 or 5 of us in this one office. Then there was the captain's office, and he had 3 or 4 yeomen in there too. But the yeoman worked for the captain and the executive officers. They worked, they did everything that, for like transferring of personnel or bringing on board personnel or anything like that. Or any correspondence. Like if the captain wanted to write to an admiral, he'd write a letter or call us in and dictate a letter to us, and we would type it out. And it had to be done a certain way. It wasn't nothing personal on it. It was, you start out with a name and address and who it's going to, and everything is in specific Navy order, discipline. So anyway, then when I got home, finally, and the war was over. I was in San Pedro when the war was over. all traffic from San Pedro to Los Angeles was one way. They drove wrong side of the streets. Everybody came to go to LA when the war was over. Nobody was going the other direction.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your time spent on the Pasadena. You disembarked from Rhode Island, correct?
I disembarked from Rhode Island, yes.
And where did you guys go from there?
Well, we were on board the Pasadena, and then it went down to Trinidad for a shakedown cruise. That's to make sure that everything works. And anything that didn't work, when we came back, they fixed it. So we went on a shakedown cruise with the Missouri. It was being built too at the time. So the two ships went down there, and we stayed down there for 3 or 4 days. And we went aboard, we had Liberty. And the only thing was that we were gambling, shaking dice. And I was gambling, and I won $500. Never touched the dice. I was just with the guy or against him, whoever was throwing. So when I went back aboard ship, I went to the purser, the guy that handles all the money, and I said, "Will you take care of this for me?" And he said, "Sure." So he put it away. So when we got back and they were fixing the ship up, we had 3 or 4 days in Boston and in New York. And so I had $500. So I could get a nice hotel room. I could eat out wherever I wanted. You know, it was terrific.
Living large, huh?
Yeah. And I met a couple of guys, and we were together the whole time. But then when I went back aboard, they were gone. But we had fun while we were in New York.
Can you take a little break to eat?
Yeah,
No,
of course.
I know he's hungry. He doesn't usually.
Yeah.
Oh, food?
Yes, I have.
All right. So, I think we were talking about you're on the Pasadena now, and you guys had done your shakedown cruise to Trinidad. You said.
Went to Trinidad, yes.
Okay.
Then
and
came
what
back to
follows
Boston.
You got the hotel room.
At the
You
hotel
won all
room.
that money.
And won all that money.
Uh-huh.
And then we got back aboard ship and went through the Panama Canal. And straight across to the Philippines.
Did you know that you guys were headed to the Philippines? Did you know you guys were headed to the Philippines?
I don't remember, because I wouldn't know. You know, the captain knows where they're going. He doesn't usually broadcast everything. But
Probably better that you didn't know.
yeah. But we thought we were going to Mindanao, which is the southern part of the Philippines. And there were 3 cruisers and about 4 or 5 destroyers. The destroyers are faster for a shorter distance, but they couldn't go. This was 4,000 miles, full blast when we were going. So they couldn't keep up. We left them.
Now, the Pasadena was a light cruiser.
Light cruiser.
And can you just explain what that is briefly?
Well, yeah, the guns were 8-inch for bombarding, and 5-inch guns for aircraft. And then we had 40 millimeters on and 20 millimeters on both sides, machine guns, which were 40 millimeters, pretty good size shell. And so our job was to shoot down the Japanese planes before they could dive on the carriers.
Now, the 8-inch guns and the 5-inch, is that the diameter?
Yeah, 8 inches.
So those are pretty big shells.
That's for bombarding. That's what we bombarded Japan and Okinawa and Iwo Jima. We were in a row, and all the guns and the ship would move over.
When they were fired,
Yeah, 10 feet.
the recoil.
The recoil would send the whole ship over.
And did you have any training on any of the guns at all?
No, I said, well, I was a lookout.
Yeah.
So I didn't have any training on. We had gunnery, a whole gunnery department that handled all the guns. And they not only shot them, but cleaned them, made sure that they were in working condition.
And do you remember which other ships were in that convoy alongside you guys? The other cruisers and.
I can't remember the names of them.
That's okay.
2 light cruisers and about 4 destroyers that stayed with us part way.
And did you guys stop off in Hawaii at all on your way to the Philippines, or did you guys go straight to?
Straight to the Philippines
And where did you?
from
did you
the
guys,
Panama Canal.
Mm-hmm. And where did you guys end up once you reached the Philippines?
Mindanao.
Okay.
We were broadside Mindanao, and then we bombarded with our 8-inch guns until the Japs were gone, either dead or ran away, and so that our troops LSDs, landing craft, can come up, and we then took back the Philippines. It was in Japanese hands before.
Now, was the journey through the Pacific, was it pretty uneventful, or
Uneventful.
do you remember how long that took? And did you get your own bunk this time, or did you have?
Oh yeah, oh no, I had a bunk.
And do you know about how many men were on board?
640 approximately.
So once you reach Mindanao, how long was the bombardment for?
Oh, probably for a couple of days. And then we were with the 5th Fleet, which was an aircraft task force. A lot of, probably 4 or 5 aircraft carriers. And each carrier had 100 planes on it. So, I mean, that was a tremendous. And we also had about 4 or 5 battleships with us, too. Not only were we bombarding, but the battleships were bombarding. And the heavy cruisers were bombarding.
And what were you doing while the bombardment was going on?
I was looking for planes with the binoculars.
And did you spot any?
Oh, sure. Sure, it's just all I had to do was tell them where they were coming from. 3 points off the starboard bow, 6 points off the starboard bow, 4 points off the port bow.
And describe to me what 3 points translates to.
Degrees, like 3 degrees. It's 360 degrees, right? It would be about 3 degrees, 5 degrees, whatever.
And who would you report the sighting to?
The gunners, right? I talk right to them. A lot of times we were at general quarters at nighttime, and we'd set up, each gunnery unit would set up a quartet and would sing songs to keep everybody awake. They would sing all sorts of songs. Then the next group would sing a song and sort of compete against each other. It was a lot of fun. Everybody sang. And then I would open up the speakers. I had control over all the speakers, so I can tell them where they're coming from. I'd open up everything to everybody so that everybody could hear the guys singing. It's noisy out there.
I was going to say, can you describe the scene, the sights, the smells, the sounds that you experienced during that?
Well, the sounds were, of course, the engines made a lot of noise. And then when we were shooting planes, that made a tremendous amount of noise. There was no sleeping. Everybody was busy doing their thing. And lots of noise. But it, and we were hit by one plane, killed a boy at the stern of the ship we were at. We had 2 planes on board our ship that we would drop in the water. They had pontoons on them. And then they would go and tell the main guns where the gasoline tanks were in Tokyo and also in where was it? Oh, Honshu, the other island, so that we could blow them up.
So are they like scout planes?
Yeah, they were scouting planes. They were Marines. And they never came back. They were shot down. We had to pack up all their clothes and ship back to their folks.
Was it just one man that would
2 guys on each
2
plane.
guys per plane? You mentioned that the ship had been hit by an enemy plane.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a kamikaze, or did they
It
was it a bomb or?
It veered off. It hit us and veered off into the ocean. It just damaged a little bit the fantail, the rear of the ship. It wasn't too bad, but they would dive on anything.
Could have been a lot worse.
Could have been a lot worse. Yeah. The carriers were like this, half sunk, and going back to the Philippines to get fixed because they got hit by a half a dozen planes.
Now, aside from the threat of an air attack,
No ship attacks.
no ship attack.
No, because we were too big. We had the whole ocean was full of U.S. ships, as far as you can see, in any direction.
And it's my understanding that the Japanese Navy was pretty well depleted at that point.
At that point, they were. They still had a couple of battleships. There was still some ship-to-ship fighting in various areas, but nothing where we were. And then when the typhoon, now, as it was, the typhoon that hit, horrendous. I mean, the seas were 100 feet high. The waves were in the middle of the ocean. You would come up like this, and you'd look down, there'd be water way down there someplace. And then all of a sudden you were down here, and waves were like this, way above you. And you'd come back up again.
Did that scare you at all?
Not me, I was 19. 19-year-olds don't get scared. I mean, I didn't. No, it was exciting. I enjoyed watching it.
Were you up on the
I was up
scout
on the,
tower?
yeah, I was up on the Sky Forward, which was the near the bridge. The bridge is where the steering wheel is.
Was it difficult to maintain balance?
Oh, impossible. Impossible. We had rails around everywhere, and you hook your arm around the rail and just hang on. And then when you were up and everything was quiet, you'd run to where you had to go, and then you'd hook the rail again. And I mean, there was throw up all over the deck where guys were sick. So you had to watch where you were walking, or you'd slip and fall. But anyway.
Nobody fell overboard?
Not that I know of. They could have, but not that I know of.
And this typhoon hit while the bombardment was still
Yes,
going on?
yeah. Well, actually, we weren't bombarding anybody. We were protecting the carriers from the planes. The incoming planes were coming. But I don't know how they flew in this weather. Typhoon is, well, you know what the hurricanes look like down south. Typhoons are just as bad. And the thing was, the Japanese had just enough gasoline to get to dive on the ship. They didn't have enough gasoline to go back.
So they knew their fate.
They had their bonsai before they left.
And about how far out was your ship from Mindanao? How far are you guys shooting these shells?
Offshore, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, probably half a mile.
And can you describe the scene of the land? I mean, could you see the impact that?
No, I couldn't see the impact the shells made. Because those shells, I think they can shoot for a mile, almost. And then we had to throw all the shells, the empty shells, overboard, get rid of them.
Just went right in the ocean?
Yeah. Where are you going to put them? You can't refill them. No.
So after the bombardment of Mindanao had ended, what came next?
We took off for Okinawa and bombarded Okinawa. Now, Okinawa was all Japanese at that time. So we bombarded them and killed as many Japs as we could. Or got them to leave Okinawa.
Was this before the invasion? You guys were bombarding Okinawa before the invasion of Okinawa?
Yes, yes. We softened it up, so to speak.
And this was prior to Iwo Jima?
Prior to Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima, that was a mess. Because they had, Iwo Jima's a volcano like that. There's a little bit of land here. And that's all. It's just an island. And except that it had an airport on it, and the Japs were using that to hop and shoot us. So we had to, and then the Marines were going aboard Iwo Jima. I don't know, 40,000 got killed there or something like that. And the Japanese had dug caves into this volcano, so they could shoot us. We couldn't see them. So that's why we had to blow them up.
Now, when you guys were attacking Okinawa, was it more of the same as Mindanao? Was it sort of a
Yeah, it was pretty much the same. Although Okinawa was bigger. Mindanao is a small Philippine island. It's not the big one, not the main one.
And were you guys under attack at Okinawa at all? Were you still?
Oh yeah, we were under attack all the time.
You were still scouting for?
Yeah, I was still scouting for enemy aircraft wherever I could spot them, wherever we could try and shoot them out of the sky before they could do any damage.
Now, how close would those planes get to you guys? I mean, aside from the
Oh, you could see the pilot's face. You could distinguish he was Japanese. That's pretty close.
Did that have any sort of a effect on you at all, being able to see the enemy face to face?
No, we were too busy. I didn't have time to think. You really didn't have time to think. The guys were doing the bombarding with the big guns. They didn't have any time to think. All they could do was load shells in, throw shells overboard, empty shells overboard. There's just so much to do.
Would you say that the training you received was significant in helping you
Oh yeah,
accomplish what you needed?
oh yeah. The training that we got was significant. It was well done. They did a good job, and a lot of the stuff that, like the hiking and the running, and stuff like that, is just to build the muscles in your legs, so that you can stand up for hours to do what you had to do. You know.
And do you recall about how frequently you guys would be shelling?
Under attack?
I
Or
guess how
shelling.
frequently you guys would be firing? Was it just a constant bombardment?
It
Or
was
there be
pretty much constant bombardment.
a
Yeah, everybody wasn't shooting the same. Therefore, everybody, you have, let's say you have a line of about 4 battleships, 3 or 4 cruisers, all firing on Okinawa. But they're all not firing together, they're firing at different times. So it just sounded like noise forever.
Do you remember about how fast you guys could fire, reload, and then fire again?
No, I was not involved in that. So I don't know.
That's all right.
I don't know. My job was to look for planes.
And about how long did the Okinawa event last for you guys?
I don't know. We were out at sea for 72 days. That's a long time without seeing any land. I mean, without being on any land.
Did you get sick of it at all?
No. We were busy. We were busy doing what we had to do. I was always busy looking for planes or looking for the horizon to see if any enemy ships were coming, because we had no idea whether any, but no ships. I never did see a ship. Planes I saw.
And you talk about how much sleep and rest and relaxation you were able to.
4 on and 4 off. 4 hours, full blast. Then you went to bed for 4 hours and slept.
Were you able to get any quality sleep?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You're exhausted. You're pooped. You're really exhausted. I slept. Sleeping has never been a problem with me. I can sleep with guns going all the time.
And can you talk about the living quarters on the ship?
Yeah, we were in bunk beds, so there was maybe 4 high or 5 high, whatever. And then sometimes when the typhoons were going and whatnot, you know, you could get thrown out of bed. So we took a rope and crisscrossed it and tied it to the springs so we wouldn't get thrown out of bed. Then we put a knife above, so in case something did happen, we had to get out in a hurry. We could just cut the rope and jump out.
And how was the food aboard?
Food was fine because you were hungry. And I don't know, good maybe. I enjoyed Navy food. Yeah, we had, you know, you had eggs and hotcakes for breakfast. You had coffee at all times. And we had stew. We had a good group of cooks. But during the typhoons, nobody would eat.
It's safe to say the majority of the guys on board got seasick.
I would say 60% of them got seasick.
And you mentioned you guys were out to sea about 72 days, you said? When did you guys eventually get going to port?
Well, after the 72 days, we went probably back to the Philippines. And then
Was
People-
that after?
People would work on the ships and make sure that everything was still ship shape, you know.
And was that after the bombardment of Iwo Jima as well, or did that happen? When did that happen? When did you guys get to?
Well,
step
Iwo
foot on
Jima,
that?
we landed on Iwo Jima. So after the bombard, we did not land on, no, not Iwo Jima. We landed on Okinawa. But Iwo Jima, we never did land on. I don't know. We just blew up the whole island
So you stepped foot on Okinawa,
on Okinawa.
and what did you do once you got off ship?
We sightsee or whatever, you know. Usually we found a bar. You usually found a bar someplace and had a cocktail, some kind.
And this was after infantry had pretty much taken care of the enemy on
Mhm.
this.
Yeah, there was usually no enemy there when they let us aboard, let us, go on land. The enemy was gone.
And about how long did you spend on Okinawa?
Oh, a couple of days. So it was just nice to get your feet on solid ground, because the ship's like this all the time.
Did you initially, when you got off ship, did you feel like you were?
Oh gosh, yes. Everything's moving.
Yeah.
The land is moving. Buildings are moving. Everything is moving.
How long does that take to?
That takes about a half a day
Yeah.
before all of a sudden you're able to walk straight again. But things move. Well, you can go out here fishing. When you come back, land is moving for a few minutes. But that's not like being at sea for 72 days.
And once you guys left Okinawa, was Iwo Jima your next stop?
Yeah, we bombarded Iwo Jima, and then while we were bombarding Iwo Jima, we got the word that they want us to go see if we can blow up all the gas tanks on Honshu, on the main islands of Tokyo, which we did. And we blew up, the place was in flames when we left.
Well, let's talk about Iwo Jima first, and then get to that afterwards. You mentioned earlier that Iwo Jima, you guys just annihilated the island.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
We had to be careful not to shoot our own men. We had to shoot at the volcano, which was like this, and there were caves all through it where the Japs were shooting us, shooting our men. So that's what we bombarded, and we bombarded it to soften it up before our men.
could you see the effects of the shells that were hitting the island?
No, it's almost a mile away. You really can't. That's why we had these reconnaissance planes to tell us what we were doing.
But with the binoculars, you couldn't see any flames or.
Well, I wasn't looking at them. I was looking for planes. You got to remember what I was doing.
I understand.
Yeah, I was looking for planes, and I wasn't looking at.
You're out there to sightsee.
No, sightseeing was never part of it. And as a kid, 19, I followed orders. I really did. And there was a war on, and I knew that. And it was important that I did my job
You took your responsibility seriously.
very seriously. Yeah, I did. It's now I look back at it, I wondered how come I didn't watch what was going on. But at the time, there was no time to look and see what was going on. You had to watch for planes. That was my one single job. And if a plane got through and dived on a carrier, it was my fault, I felt. So I had to make sure that our guys were shooting at him. And we had 5-inch aircraft guns that when you shot a 5-inch shell out, it would explode and then shrapnel will go all over. So the shrapnel will get the enemy plane. The shell may not.
And did you see any planes get shot down?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yes. Yeah, and they'd hit the ocean and sink. And that's the end of it. Huh? Bottom of the ocean must be full of planes, someplace.
And did you guys experience any other close calls or hits, direct hits to the ship?
No, not that I know of. I mean, if it hit on the other side of the ship, I wouldn't know. We had, the thing that really stuck in my mind was the boy that died. We had a burial at sea. And the Marines that were aboard gave him a 3-gun salute, or whatever it was. And he was on a board and wrapped in cloth. And then they turned the board over and he slid out. See, you can't keep him on board. But that really hurt me. Not really hurt, but really made me aware of what was going on to see them dump that body into the ocean.
Did you know the gentleman that got killed?
Yeah, he was a friend of mine.
What was it? Do you remember?
He
his
was a
name?
yeoman. No, I have no idea. At the time I did, but no, not now. I don't remember anybody's name now.
You mentioned earlier you received letters from home a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How did it make you feel to receive a letter from your mom?
Great. I looked forward to it. I really looked forward to it.
And were you able to write back to her, or were you...
Oh, yeah, but not every day. I couldn't write every day. No, maybe once a week I'd write. And I can't say anything, or else they'd cut it out of my letter. And my letter would be a holy letter. So you don't want to say anything anyway.
Just let her know that you're still
just let right and still brushing my teeth and all that good stuff. Well, you saw what I wrote to my brother. That was on board ship.
Oh, I don't think I got to see it yet.
Oh,
I'll check it out after.
okay. Yeah, you could read that and that'll
Okay.
give you an idea. You can't say that you were fighting. You can't say that you were bombarding. You can't say anything that could give the enemy an idea if they got hold of the letter. But we had movies, so we could talk about the movie or whatever.
Now, after Iwo Jima, what happened next? Where did you guys go? What did you guys do?
Well, while we were bombarding Iwo Jima, we bombarded Honshu, which is where all the gasoline tanks were. And that's in Japan proper. And we snuck in there. We just snuck in, did our job, and snuck out again. Or else they'd have blown us out of the water.
Was that a one day thing or?
One-day thing.
Mhm.
I think it was a one-day thing. All I remember is one day.
Were you guys were about the same distance, about a half a mile off the mainland?
Yeah. Maybe a full mile.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
And your purposes for going there were what again?
Gasoline tanks. You know those round tanks that hold gasoline. It's to blow them up. Make sure that that they don't have enough gasoline, because they didn't have enough gasoline like we do.
Their resources were limited,
Yeah.
and you guys did hit those fuel tanks.
Yes.
Did you see the explosion from?
Yes.
Can you
That
describe
we could see. Well, the whole sky would be lit up
Mhm.
from the fire. And then when we finished, we went back to the Philippines to get a little R&R. And there are other islands there too that we could go to get some R&R. You needed that. You needed a break.
And how long did you guys stay there for?
At the Philippines,
Mm-hmm.
probably 3 or 4 days. Then I don't know where we went. We could have gone to another island, or we could have done anything. I can't remember now.
This is getting towards the end of the war.
Yes. It's getting towards the end of the war.
And you mentioned you were on one other ship after the Pasadena?
Yes. The Salisbury Sound,
Mm-hmm.
which was a seaplane tender.
Mm-hmm. And what is that exactly?
Well, that has a machine shop on it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we would do is a seaplane had come up alongside the ship, and we had a big crane that went over and picked it up and brought it on board ship. And then the guys would work on it, fix it all up, make sure it was in running condition. Then we'd take the crane, put it back in the water, and off it went.
And what were your responsibilities on that?
I was a yeoman.
You say?
Responsibilities. I had nothing to do with the seaplanes. My job was to, take care of all the records, write any correspondence that was needed or whatever.
Were you guys still close to the battle zone, the combat zone, or were you?
We
guys...
were in Okinawa,
Okay.
but it was no longer a battle zone. No, it was getting near the end. There weren't not that many battle zones anymore.
And do you remember when you got word that the war had ended?
In Japan,
Well, let me ask you this: did you catch word that the war in Europe had ended?
yes,
Do you remember that day?
no. But I remember the day the Japanese war was ended.
Mm-hmm.
We were in San Pedro, and everybody left their ships or whatever they were on, and got into a car, or somebody's car, and drove to Los Angeles. All roads to LA were one way. I remember that.
And you were in one of those cars.
I was driving one.
And when you got to Los Angeles, what did you do there? What was the
Well, we
atmosphere like?
celebrated.
Yeah.
Everybody yelled and screamed. And, you hugged people, and the war was over.
How happy were you?
Very happy. I was going to go home. The guy I was with was Harold Taylor. Forgot his name until just now. And he lived not too far from me. We came back together. I drove him home. And he says, I'm going to join up again. Do you want to join up with me? I said, let me think about it. And I thought about it. And I told him, no, I'm going to go to college and get an education.
So where did you go to college?
Cal State, LA.
And what did you study?
I studied accounting to start with. But I was married and had a couple of kids by now. And so accountants, junior accountants were getting 50 cents an hour or something. Because then they had to work for a senior accountant for 2 years before they could become a. So I thought, gee, this is ridiculous. I can't live on that. I also minored in business management. So I got into management right away. I got a job in an industrial supply company, machine shop supplies, and started out in the shipping department, worked my way up to general manager, then ran the place.
And eventually, did you get married?
Oh yeah, I was married then.
When did you meet your wife?
Oh geez, that was all right. She was in my class in college. This was in the psychology class with 300 students. I didn't know she was there. And she didn't know I was there. And so on Friday, we all went down to the witch stand, where you get a hamburger, fries, and a malt, you know. And so we were all down there, and I was with 3 of my friends, Duke and Tom and somebody else, another kid. And Duke said, let's go to San Francisco for the weekend. And we said, great. And she was in another car and heard him say that. Says, you guys going to San Francisco? And we said, yes. Would you drop me off at Stockton? Because my grandmother is there and I'd like to visit her. And we said, sure. So she popped into the car. And there were 5 of us, I think, or 4 of us. And so we went to San Francisco, to Stockton. So she sat in the back with me. And all of a sudden we were just holding hands. It just seemed like the thing to do. And then we stopped for gas. So her and I walked around the gas station holding hands. And we got back into the car. Well, I didn't realize it, but the guy driving the car thought that she was his girlfriend. He'd taken her out a couple of times. They went to dances, whatnot. But I had no idea, and he never said anything. And she had no idea. She just knew she went to dance with him. So we then took Joyce to her grandmother's house. We all went to San Francisco and had fun for the weekend. Then went to Stockton and picked up Joyce and drove back. And so we were talking, and I said that 3 of us are going to Yosemite. 3 guys. I don't even know the other 2 guys' names. We're going to Yosemite. And she said, well, maybe I've got 2 girlfriends. Maybe all 6 of us can go to Yosemite together. And I said, it'd be great, but we'd need a chaperone. In those days, you did not do this. Single people, it was not a good thing. So we got a chaperone. So we went over to her aunt's house, and her aunt's mother, who was about 80 years old, said, I'll chaperone you. So we said, great. So we brought her along, took her car, and I had a tent trailer type of thing that could sleep 4 or 5 people. All the guys slept outdoors, and the girls slept in the tent. And so, as we got the thing all set up, Joyce and I went to my car, which was right there. And we had a quart of milk, and we went into the car and sat down and started just talking. Now, I had never taken her out, never even kissed her, just held her hand once. And so we talked about getting married. And not only did we talk about getting married, we said how many kids we wanted. We wanted 8. And what else was there? 8 kids. Anyway, we were going to get married, period. So we screwed around and told our chaperone that we already got married. And she went ape, cussed up and down us. Then the Rangers came because the language was so bad. And they told us, you have to watch your language. We said, okay. And so anyway, Joyce and I were going to get married. And I had never taken her out. So we went to a dance and danced. And we went on all the hikes in Yosemite, all the falls and everything else, and came back. We got back to LA, and my friend Tom, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and my friend Tom, we knocked on his window at his house. He came to the window and said, Joyce and I are going to get married. He says, wait there. And he went and got his dad's car and drove us to Tijuana. We didn't get married there, but he drove us to Tijuana, and we had fun there and everything, and came back. And then I called my mother up. I said, I'd like you to meet a girl. My mother knew immediately that she was going to be my wife. So we met her at California Bank. We went to a restaurant downtown and had lunch. And I told my mother we were going to get married. And she was so happy. And then we had to go back to school. So then we sat next to each other. And I think we were holding hands in the hallway at Cal State. And the teacher came up and says, you can't do that in college. No holding hands. I mean, things were different 60, 70 years ago. And so anyway, we stopped holding hands. But we said we were going to get married. She said, that doesn't make any difference. No holding hands. We said, okay. So anyway, we talked to her mother and told her mother we were getting married. Nobody really believed us because nobody knew her and nobody knew me. Her side of the family, no one knew me. My side of the family, no one knew her. But all of a sudden, that was June. And her mother said, we'll do it in September. That'll give me 2 months to get things ready. We said, fine. So then she got the whole thing ready. And her dad said, give me the keys to your car before the wedding, the day before the wedding. And I said, why? He said, I guarantee it'll be running. If you don't give me the keys, I don't guarantee it'll be running. I said, okay. So I gave him the keys. And he painted the whole thing, just married, all sorts of stuff. You know, honey, with yellow calcimine paint. Painted the whole car. And so we got married, and he says, do you guys want money for a honeymoon, or do you want a reception? And we said, we want a reception. He said, okay. So he gave us a reception. And when the reception was all done, he gave me $50 for a honeymoon. It was really fun. I didn't expect it, but we got it. So then we drove off, 100 people following us, honking horns, cans hanging from the car, just like the good old days. And finally I got rid of everybody. And we got to Huntington Beach. We went into this hotel, and somehow or other, we weren't ready. So we walked right back out and got in the car and drove down a little farther, down to, what the hell was the name of it? Down the road. And we found another motel. It was Palms Motel. Had palm trees all around it. And so we went in there and knocked on the door. We said we would like to have a room, please. He said, just married? And of course the car had just married all over. Yes. He says, okay. So he gave us a nice room. And he bounced up and down the bed. Said, see, it doesn't even squeak. We were really ready for all that. He was a character. So then we got the hotel room and stayed a week. It was $12 a week. How's that for
That's a
a
good
hotel
deal.
room? $12 a week. So we had money to eat, and so we started making babies. And we had 9 months and 2 weeks after we got married, we had a baby.
And how many did you guys end up having in total?
8.
The number that you had
We
agreed
had
upon.
primarily said 8. We had 5 girls and then 3 boys.
And how many grandchildren and great-grandchildren do you have now?
I have 25 grandchildren and 33 great-grandchildren. And a bunch of pregnant ones. Everybody's getting pregnant. We're really going to populate the world.
It's quite the legacy to leave behind.
Oh gosh, yes. Anyway, it was, and then my wife got, I don't know what she got. She had a tumor on her adrenal gland, which changed her what do you call it? Anyway, she didn't want me anymore. She would go up and lock the door in the bedroom and wouldn't come down. She'd invite the whole family over, all of them, for Thanksgiving dinner, then go up and lock herself in a room. She just went bonkers on everybody. And she finally passed away. She had diabetes and something else, and it was just too much. And then they found the tumor on her adrenal gland. And the guy said, I'm so sorry. If we'd have found this 6 months earlier, we changed her personality. Yeah, her personality changed. She didn't want her kids anymore. Told all her kids, I don't want you anymore. You've got your father. Period. Then she borrowed money on the house, and we lost the house. Got a big house in Huntington Beach. And fact is, it was being foreclosed. And I put it up for sale and sold it while the foreclosure was going through on the steps of Santa Ana courthouse. And so I sold it just right, just made it. Didn't get as much as I'd like, but I got rid of it. So we each had about 30, 40,000.
How long were you guys married for?
Um, 30 years, between 30 and 40 years. Yeah, and then what happened after she died? My youngest son got hit by a car and killed in Dallas, Texas, and he was a newlywed. And that was a terrible thing. He just got his doctorate degree in music. He was teaching high school, junior high school, and in college, teaching 3 classes when he was killed.
Very sorry to hear that.
And that was a terrible, terrible thing. I went to pieces. I mean, I lost my wife, and then I lost him, and that was more than I could take. And so I happened to be going to I had had a heart attack before. So I was going to a heart rejuvenation club like that they set up. People with heart attacks. There was about 10 of us together. And once a week we'd get together and we'd say what happened to us during the week. And so when they got to me, I started crying. I couldn't stop. They handed me a box of Kleenex and said, "We'll wait." And so they all waited until I finally told them that I'd lost my youngest son. And they were so nice. And so the next week, same thing happened. I started crying. I couldn't stop. And one of the guys, actually, the heart doctor, his wife was a psychologist or a psychiatrist, one or the other. Anyway, he said, "Why don't you go see my wife?" So I did. I went to her for 2 months, and she got it so I could talk again without crying. So then, when I sold the house, I moved up with the daughter. I lived with the daughter here, Patricia, who I'm living with now. I lived with her for a year. Then I moved up north and lived with another daughter for 9 years. And the kids had no problem with me living with them. I mean, you know, everything was just worked out. So then my aunt down here, actually it's my wife's aunt, down here lived in Leisure World. You know where that is? Okay. It's a retirement center over in Laguna Woods. And she was living there and fell, and they put her into a hospital, care center like, and called me and said, "We've got her in here. We're going to put her into an insane asylum." Well, I said, "Oh, no, you're not. Tell me what's going on." So they said, "Well, she took a scissors and cut up her blanket and cut up her coat." And I said, "Well, who gave her the scissors?" "Well, it was on her keychain. We didn't realize it. It was one of those fold-up kind. And so don't do a thing. I'm coming down and get her." So I came down and got her and took her to her house, and we packed up a whole bunch of clothes, took her TV, whatever she thought she needed, and locked up her house and brought her up north where I was living, which was in Fairfax, California. And then I found her a place to live, assisted living, with a nurse that could give her bills. And so I visited her every day and would drive her places, and she loved flowers and trees, anything that grew. And so we'd go different places, look at things. And then one day they called me and said, "We just put her in the hospital." I said, "What happened?" And well, she fell, and she's not all there right now. So I said, "Okay." So I went to the hospital and visited her and hugged her and said, I played bridge with her too. So I told her I was going to play bridge, and I forgot where it was. And anyway, and I'll see her when I come back home. And she said, okay. She gave me a hug and died in my arms. Just collapsed. What a way to go. And so I laid her back down. I called for the nurse, and I said, I think she died. And the nurse checked her and said, yes, she's dead. I said, you've got a doctor here? Somebody I can talk to? He said, sure. So they got a doctor, and he set up to have her cremated. And I went and played bridge. But anyway, and then she left me her house. So I went back. I left north, went back, and anyway.
Well, the last question I have for you, if you have any advice that you could bestow upon my generation or for future generations, what would that be?
Well, I think the most important thing you can do is vote. You've got to vote every single election. I don't care how small. Because you have a say-so, and your vote counts. How many times have you heard people say, oh, my vote doesn't count. It's a single vote. What happened to us, my wife had a friend running for city council in Huntington Beach. And our whole family voted for her. That was 5 votes. And she won by 5 votes. So she invited us over and gave us a big party. But do you want to know if your vote counts? It does. And that's a really important. That would be the only thing. Don't go to war. I can't think of anything else.
That's okay.